Karl Marx was born on May 5, 1818, in Trier, Prussia, now Germany, to a middle-class family. His father was a lawyer who had converted from Judaism to Christianity to advance his career, and Marx was educated in both law and philosophy at the universities of Bonn and Berlin. During his studies, Marx became interested in the ideas of G.W.F. Hegel, particularly Hegel's dialectical method, which argued that historical progress occurs through the conflict of opposing forces. Marx would later adapt this into his own materialist approach, focusing on the economic forces that drive social change. After university, Marx became involved in radical political journalism, advocating for democratic reforms in Germany. His early work as a journalist introduced him to the struggles of the working class and led him to believe that fundamental social change could only come through revolutionary means. In 1843, Marx moved to Paris, where he met Friedrich Engels, a fellow radical thinker and future lifelong collaborator. Engels, who came from a wealthy industrialist family, had witnessed firsthand the conditions of workers in England and shared Marx's conviction that capitalism was exploitative and unjust. Marx and Engels worked together to develop the theory of historical materialism, which posits that the structure of society is fundamentally determined by its economic base, the mode of production. In this framework, history is seen as a series of class struggles, where the dominant class controls the means of production and the subordinate class is exploited for its labor. Marx saw this dynamic as the driving force behind all historical development, from feudalism to capitalism, and predicted that it would lead to socialism and eventually a classless, stateless communist society. In 1848, Marx and Engels published the Communist Manifesto, a political pamphlet that became one of the most influential texts in modern history. The manifesto argues that all societies are based on class antagonisms and that the capitalist system is inherently exploitative. According to Marx and Engels, the bourgeoisie or capitalist class profits by extracting surplus value from the labor of the proletariat, the working class. The manifesto called for workers of the world to unite in revolution against their oppressors, predicting that capitalism would collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. Marx's critique of capitalism was elaborated in his most significant work, Das Kapital, published in 1867. In this book, Marx analyzed the workings of the capitalist system, particularly how capitalists generate profits by exploiting workers. One of Marx's key concepts is commodity fetishism, where social relations between people are masked by market relationships between commodities. In a capitalist economy, Marx argued, workers become alienated from their labor, the products they produce, and even from their own humanity, as they are treated as mere instruments of production. Marx also introduced the concept of surplus value, which explains how capitalists profit by paying workers less than the value they produce. This surplus value is the foundation of capitalist exploitation and accumulation. Marx believed that the contradictions within capitalism, such as overproduction, economic crises, and the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few, would eventually lead to its downfall. Throughout his life, Marx remained committed to political activism. In 1864, he became involved with the International Workingmen's Association, also known as the First International, a global organization that aimed to unite workers' movements across national borders. Despite internal conflicts and the eventual dissolution of the First International, Marx's ideas continued to inspire revolutionary movements around the world. Marx's personal life was often difficult. He lived in relative poverty for much of his later life, relying on financial support from Engels. Several of his children died young, and Marx himself suffered from poor health. Despite these challenges, he continued to write and revise his works until his death on March 14, 1883, in London. The legacy of Karl Marx is vast and complex. His ideas have had a profound impact on political thought, economics, and social theory. In the 20th century, Marx's ideas were adopted by revolutionary movements in Russia, China, and other parts of the world, leading to the establishment of socialist and communist states. While many of these regimes diverged from Marx's original vision, his analysis of capitalism, class struggle, and exploitation continues to be influential. Marx's critiques of capitalism remain relevant today, especially in discussions about economic inequality, labor rights, and the power dynamics inherent in globalized markets. Although his prediction of capitalism's collapse has not yet materialized, his analysis of its contradictions continues to resonate with scholars and activists. The enduring appeal of Marx's ideas lies in his vision of a society free from class divisions and exploitation, a vision that, for many, still represents the possibility of a more just and equitable world.